Bienvenue à tous sur Full Play Channel, la chaîne YouTube.
Thank you, Jerome. We have an international opening. Well, look, welcome, guys. Welcome to Coffee with Foul Play. My name is Dr. Silkman, and welcome, beautiful people. And thank you, guys, for joining us today, listening to what is our final presentation for the MAM2 series. Hopefully, in the week after, what we'll do is review of MAM2 and just go over some critical slides and some critical parts of the program. Look, guys, welcome. We're really, really happy that you can join us. If you like what we do, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Now, the title of today's presentation, and I think we all can equate to this, today's presentation is entitled, I Felt a Very Controlled Rage. And I think that holds true for all of us, especially those that have been following this case or the cases. Now, joining me on the panel today, we have our regular researchers. We have Bibi, we have Big Jeff, Hanzo, Jack61, and Neverly. And on chat, monitoring the chat on YouTube and taking your questions, we have Katnit, Linda Kay, Sammy, and Zoe. So, guys, you know how it works by now. Write down your questions, and we'll try and answer them after the podcast proper has been done. And we'll try and answer as many of your questions as possible. Now, I'd just like to say from all of us at Foul Play, we have now over 1,000 subscribers, and we're really, really thankful. And thank you guys for staying with us for the journey, supporting us through the good times and the bad times. And we're really, really impressed. Thank you for your support. It means a lot to us. And so far on our YouTube channel, our videos have had over 298,000 views. And that's really awesome and very impressive. If you look at our YouTube channel and you go into the links, you'll see links to many of the things that we are involved in at Foul Play, on Discord, our website, on and other social media as well. Have a look at them at your leisure. Awesome. Now, look, today, guys, it's my pleasure. We have 3 special guest researchers. We have Brownie, Jerome, and Wizard. Now, you guys have met Wizard last week, very passionate about these cases, which is awesome. But what I'd like to do is to introduce Brownie and ask Brownie, welcome, and what got you involved in these cases? Brownie, let us know.
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. How are you there, everyone? Yeah, I mean, I watched Making a Murderer early last year, and
Yes.
I've always been a fan of sort of mysteries and puzzles and things like that. And I just when I watched this show, I just thought, well, it's so obvious that he didn't do it, and what the real mystery is, how whoever did do it managed to get away with it, and what the police and law enforcement did.
Yes. Yes.
It's surprising. And I've watched various sort of things on YouTube and read things on Reddit and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of quite wild theories out there, and I'd like to sort of question some of them.
Yes.
And I think you've enjoyed some of the questions I've had for you the past few weeks.
Oh, we love them.
Why you invite me on?
No, you asked some incredibly good questions. That's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes it might sound like I think Stephen Avery's guilty because of some of those questions, but I don't. I think he's completely innocent of this crime.
Yes,
but I do think you just got to be careful with some wild theories that go around, including him saying that he is guilty. So
yes,
that's why I'm questioning it.
Oh no, that is awesome, Brownie. And can I ask what part of the world you're from?
I'm from the northeast of England.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Brownie, and welcome to the podcast. And our second special guest researcher today is Jerome. Jerome, would you like to spend a couple of minutes telling us how you got involved in these cases?
Yes, for sure. But before, I would like to tell you, all you guys, and guys, it's an expression, uh, a a big, huge congratulation for all the work you do, and you have a great team of researcher, and it's big congratulations for all what you do, and thank you very much for your invitation. I appreciate I appreciate it a lot. And
Thank you very much, Jerome.
I live in Belgium, so
Oh,
yeah, and in the south of the country. And here in Belgium, in the south of the country, we never practice English. So
right,
so
right.
that's why sometimes I have difficulties
Yes,
to talk in English, because I understand very well the when people talk, but when I need to talk, it's more difficult because I never practice it.
well, I tell you what, Jerome, you're doing a better job, and I bet you speak French better than any one of us here. Right, team? Right, guys?
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Oui.
So I think, yeah, we. So I think, so I think, Jerome, you're doing a marvelous job. I just wanted to say that I saw your presentation on Brendan Dassey, and it
Yes.
was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And it made me angry all over again.
Oh,
But yeah, superb job. Superb job. Well,
thank you
Jerome,
very
what?
much.
No, no. What got you into the cases?
Oh, it was in 2015 when
Yes.
the documentary was released in Belgium. And in the first episode, I was thinking, but for real, I was thinking it was a fiction.
Yes. Yes. Most of us thought that.
And because it was so huge,
Correct.
and after like that, I realized that it was not the case. It was real life, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. A complete tragedy for sure.
A- and after I have watched the first time, I've watched the entire season 3 times.
Oh.
I was completely upset, and
Yes.
after that, I go up on my computer to research information about the case, but in
Yes.
French.
In French.
Yes, but in French, because I
Yes.
I I tell me at the time, this is a huge documentary on Netflix. People
Yes.
here in Belgium or in French, we will made uh, a YouTube channel, because they are more aware,
Ah.
more able than me to do that,
Yes.
because I'm not able to do that at all at the time. I was
Yes.
never do a YouTube channel before. I'm a musician, me. and
Yes.
and
Yes.
I love my garden, and I love the natures, and I was not at all in this kind of
Yes.
stuff. But this story had touched me a lot, and
Yes.
I have looked for information, but at the time, I have only find Eriko's video,
Yes.
Mrs. Ali Apperson's video, and Mr. Dave Begokta's video, and
Yes.
also Laura Purple Perplex,
Purpleplex. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Purple
Yeah.
Plex, about the case. And directly I start to watch all the video of Eric Ozzy and Ali Apperson, and I I have take um,
Mm.
um, I have made a relation with Eric to
Yes,
explain him. He in Belgium and in Europe, there is no one to relate the information. And I was
yes,
thinking it was really a shame because stuff happened in US or uh,
yes,
everywhere around the world can happen to you. Uh,
correct,
it's not
correct.
only for the US.
That's
It's
correct.
all around the world,
Yes,
and it told me the same answer you told me, Dr. Skillman. He say, yeah, you're right, Jerome. And if anybody do that, go ahead, buddy.
yes,
And I tell him, yeah, but I'm not a YouTuber, and I don't know if I'm able to do that because I don't speak English. Uh,
yes,
I it's only one person to do that. It's difficult, and
it is. It is.
yeah, it is, and and after that I have met beautiful people. I have met Paul Capaldi. I have met Linda. I have met my Billy. I have met
A lot
uh,
of people, a lot of people.
a lot of people. And after I've saw your channel, and I was thinking it was really interesting, and because you stay always classy, and and I really appreciate that, because you are not a kind of channel with angry people, and we won't take a blame to another. And no, you are here for the same purpose of us. And
Yes.
I think you made a really great job.
Thank you very much, Jerome. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you to
Look,
you.
oh no, I appreciate that. I mean, all of us, we all started from nothing. We all got together. We all worked very, very hard, and hopefully, we can get more people like yourself come on and hopefully contribute, and that's awesome. Look, thank you very much, Jerome. What I'll do, I'll make a start now on the podcast proper. And once we finish that, then we can have much more of a discussion later on. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you so much for that. Let's have a look at slide number 1. Well, we all know the story, right? Kathleen Zona, who's representing Stephen Avery, she's currently got a file, and she's waiting for a response um, from the state. But in the meantime, years ago, of course, she had done previous filings with the state. And I'll read here and I'll quote: on September the 18th, 2017, Kathleen meets with the prosecutors in Madison and informs them of the evidence that she has developed since filing her petition 3 months earlier. And I quote: the prosecutors agree that Kathleen can amend her petition and agree to release additional evidence for her testing. So we already know that Kathleen Zona has hired many professionals in the field, and what the professionals did is that they looked at various pieces of evidence. Now, Kathleen Zona is very interested in looking at the forensic evidence in this case. So, guys, let's have a look at slide number 2. One of the most important pieces of forensic evidence are the bone fragments. And in particular, there is one particular set of bone fragments. This is slide number 2, which are very, very important. And that's the pelvic bone fragments. These pelvic bone fragments were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And there's one critical question that needed to be answered. And that basically was that pelvic bone fragment indeed human? And we already know the frustration of what happened during the court trials. And Dr. Eisenberg was questioned extensively about this particular pelvic bone fragment. And you can actually see the diagram, the picture on the left-hand side. The bone fragments were relatively small, but what you note is that they were burnt, small in size, but they were also cut. Some type of instrument, either a very sharp knife or a saw blade, was used to cut the pelvic bone fragment. And you can see the pelvic bone fragment on the right-hand side. Now note, you can actually see the internal honeycomb structure of the bone on the right-hand side. So this is part of the pelvic fragment. Now, Dr. Eisenberg, who was the state's forensic pathologist, was asked, question, you still suspect them of being human pelvic bone? Answer, suspected possible human. Now, suspected possible human is sitting on the fence. Dr. Eisenberg did not say that they were human, did not say that they were non-human, which is rather remarkable because one of the jobs of a forensic anthropologist is to categorize bones which are either human or non-human. But somehow she actually refused to commit. And I think Bibi will tell you Dr. Eisenberg was also involved in another case, wasn't she, Bibi? Yes?
Yes. Yes, she was.
Yes. And
She screwed the pooch on that one. She was in the
correct.
Christine Rudy case, and she said the unborn fetus had been burnt in the fire pit.
Yes.
And months later, when they dug the fetus, the trunk, the
Yeah,
torso,
the torso, yes.
yeah, out of the ice, the baby was still inside her. So
Correct. She actually called, I think it was animal bones as human fetal bones and
yeah,
made a
bird
huge
bones.
blunder. Yeah, made a huge blunder. But it seemed rather strange, but she refused to categorize these pelvic bones. And we'll discover why she did that. All right, so guys, if we have a look at slide number 3, well, all of us want to know more about the Toyota RAV4. This is Teresa Horbach's alleged vehicle. And as we can see, this is the photographs of the Toyota RAV4 that's present. It's in a storage container. This is the very vehicle that was found by Pam Sturm and her daughter Nicole on the 5th of November. And there's been a lot of controversy about this particular vehicle. Did it actually belong to Teresa Horbach? Was there one RAV? Was there two RAVs? I'm going for 1.5 RAVs. But clearly, Kathleen Zellner and her experts want to examine the Toyota RAV4. Now, there's one particular part of the RAV4 that we all know about that's very, very special, and that's the rear door latch. Now, on the rear door latch, as you can see on the right-hand side, there was fingerprints. There was also the presence of blood on it. So a swab was done, it was proven to be blood, and that sample turned out to be item A23. Now, the remarkable thing was that Shariko Hain only got a partial profile of item A23. So she was able to exclude both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey and Teresa Horbach as being the person who contributed to item A23. But what Culhane did is that she failed to re-extract the DNA to obtain a full genomic profile. And this is rather remarkable because in the Toyota RAV4, we have 3 genomic profiles. We've got Teresa Horbach, we've got Stephen Avery, and we've got this unknown individual who left item A23. It's highly possible that the killer or the accomplice had left their blood and fingerprint on the back door of the Toyota RAV4. Now, guys, let's think about it. The state are stating that Teresa Halbach was actually placed in the back of her own Toyota RAV4. Well, in order to do that, you need to, of course, open up the latch, and you have to close the latch. So whoever likely had assaulted Teresa Halbach had left their fingerprint and blood sample on the back door. This is why Kathleen Zellner and her experts want to re-examine the Toyota RAV4. The Toyota RAV4 is a critical part of the crime scene that was used against Stephen Avery. Well, you guessed it, guys. The state haven't given the Toyota RAV4 to Kathleen Zellner. They were going to, but everything got thrown out, and so far she hasn't had access to the Toyota RAV4. Now, one problem, guys, is this. The longer that Toyota RAV4 sits, any form of evidence like DNA potentially can break down, which is a real tragedy. So in my opinion, I think the state has actually crushed the RAV4. Kept the swabs, but I think the RAV4 is gone. I hope I'm wrong. All right, guys, but clearly it's a critical part of the crime scene. Let's have a look at slide number 4. Well, slide number 4 are the Toyota RAV4 number plates. And these were found, I think they were found by a fireman, and they were found in a vehicle around the periphery of the Avery salvage yard. Now, clearly, Kathleen Zellner wants to re-examine the number plates. And what's happened with an examination of these number plates is that no blood was detected on the number plates. However, low levels of male DNA were extracted from the number plates. But unfortunately, in a report, Culhane had stated, look, the level of DNA was so low, I couldn't make out an interpretation of the genomic profiles. And you guessed it, Culhane didn't go and re-extract the DNA samples from the number plates. Now, quite clearly, if you have Stephen Avery, who's apparently actively bleeding, one would have expected there to have been blood or fingerprints left on those number plates. Wizard, do you have a comment?
Wow. All over, not just all over the number plates, all over the vehicle, all over the inside, absolutely everywhere.
Yes. Correct. And thank you, Wizard. And we'll talk about this after I finish the podcast. But the amazing thing was, according to Culhane and also the fingerprinting expert, I think 8 sets of prints were found either in or on the Toyota RAV4. They don't match to anybody, right? They don't belong to Stephen. They don't belong to Brendan. Now, here's one problem, right? I don't think Teresa Halbach left a series of fingerprints anywhere, right? So they probably can't match it to Teresa Halbach either. But considering it's her vehicle, right, and a violent crime allegedly took place involving the Toyota RAV4, one would have expected there to be fingerprints absolutely everywhere. But none of them match Stephen or Brendan. Now, the problem is, guys, I don't think Teresa Halbach has left a set of fingerprints anywhere. So they can't match them to her because she's got no fingerprints anywhere. But Kathleen Zellner clearly wants to re-extract the DNA that's been found on those number plates. All right, guys, let's have a look at slide number 5. Well, we've covered the blinker light before. And the blinker light is very, very interesting. So quite clearly, if you see on the left-hand side, there was damage to the blinker light. And you can see that it basically popped out of the bumper bar. Someone had stopped and picked up the blinker light and put it in the back of the Toyota RAV4. Now, I know I'm speculating here, but I have a feeling the reason why it wasn't left is because it would have given a clue as to where the accident took place and what the Toyota RAV4 had actually hit in order to damage the blinker light. Now, the frustrating thing, of course, guys, is that the state won't allow Kathleen Zellner to examine the blinker light, right? Now, does it have fingerprints? Does it have DNA? Does it contain micro traces of paint? And she said that we could tell what the car hit, what the Toyota RAV4 hit, by examining the blinker light. But if you notice, there's something very unusual. Have a look at the blinker light on the left-hand side. You can see that there's a brown marking on the blinker light. If you have a look at the blinker light on the right-hand side, it's clean. Someone has removed that dark smudge from the blinker light and it's like in pristine condition. So someone obviously doesn't want for Kathleen Zellner or anybody else to discover what that substance was. Likely it was paint and it hit either a vehicle or a post or something, which is truly remarkable that Kathleen Zellner can't get her hands on that blinker light. Right, guys, if we have a look at slide number 6, well, we can see what had happened. The judge had dismissed her filings. And you can see it made the news. Judge denies new trial for Avery. And this is despite Kathleen Zellner putting in a huge submission. And I remember Kathleen Zellner sitting in her office with her staff members. This is looking at slide number 6. And quite clearly, the judge had simply skipped Angela. It's very hard for me to say her surname without swearing. But yeah, it appeared that she had quickly gone through the submission, didn't read it all at all very carefully, and dismissed it outright. Right? And we can see here Brad Schimmel, the Attorney General, he said, and I quote, "I am pleased with the judge's decision, which brings us one step closer to providing justice for Teresa Halbach's family." Now, let's be perfectly clear, guys. All of us want justice for Teresa, right? Her murder was brutal and savage, but you want to ensure that the right people are in prison for that horrendous crime. So really, there is no justice for Teresa, no justice for Brendan, and no justice for Stephen. And the quote of the episode was Kathleen Zellner looking straight down the barrel of the camera, and she said, "I felt a very controlled rage." And of course, if you know Kathleen Zellner, she's not going to give up, right? She's very, very tenacious. So guys, if we have a look at, by the way, she actually said that her case involving her client Ryan Ferguson had also received similar setbacks, and she had to fight really, really hard to get Ryan released, but she did, right? So if we have a look at slide number 7. So before Judge, I think it's Sukowitz, before she ruled on the motion to vacate, Kathleen Zellner filed a motion to reconsider, right? So remember, new evidence is being gathered by Kathleen Zellner, and so she amended her filing to the judge. So if we have a look at slide number 8, you can see that in slide number 8, there was an explosive phone call. And that phone call was between Stephen, his sister Barb, and Barb's husband, Scott Tadich. And let's start on the left-hand side. You've all heard, hopefully all heard this explosive phone call. And basically what Stephen was doing was he was questioning his sister, and I'll quote, "What is all that shit doing on the computer?" And Barb kept on denying that there was nothing on the computer. She didn't even have the internet, but quite clearly she did. Because remember, in a previous episode that we looked at, there was a lot of very violent pornographic material that was found on the Dassey computer. That computer happened to be in Bobby Dassey's room, right? But the other startling thing was that there was an admittance by Barb when she said, oh, and also before I go into that, Stephen was actually quite clever. He's obviously working side by side aside with his attorney, Kathleen Zellner. So Stephen knew, and he said, and the only time it was on is when Bobby was there alone. So they're able to pattern match the searches when Bobby Dassey was home, right? And Barb, of course, was not impressed with what or where Stephen was going, and she simply denied, no, couldn't possibly be on the computer. But the other startling revelation was this, and that Barb admitted that Bobby Dassey said, yeah, she left, as in Teresa Horbach actually left the Avery salvage yard, right? And of course, during the trial, Bobby said, no, he never saw that, and he threw his own uncle, Stephen, under the bus. So lo and behold, now we've got a new sort of like a confession reversing what Bobby actually had said, that he actually had seen, and they agreed Teresa Horbach had left the Avery salvage yard, exactly what Stephen said all along. And Stephen said this, he said, I just want to get down to the truth and see who did it, right? And it's remarkable that you have to have a guy who's been sitting in prison again for a long period of time, again, wanting to know, okay, who actually had committed this crime, right? Which is very, very sad indeed. So if we have a look at slide number 9, well, of course, looks like Barb Tadich has got a very active Facebook page. And she said, and I'll quote, well, I have your answer for all of you that was wondering. Just got off the phone with Bobby, and I asked him, and he told me that, quote, he's seen her pull in, but that was it, because he left to go hunting then. He said that is the truth. And then one of the Facebook person said, by the name of Cindy, quote, so he never seen her walk towards Stephen home? And Barb goes, no, right? And that now matches perfectly with what Brian Dassey said all along. And I quote, I distinctively remember Bobby telling me, Stephen could not have killed her because I saw her leave the property on October 31st, 2005, which is, of course, consistent with what Stephen had said from day one, that he saw Teresa Horbach leave the property. All right. Now, as mad as this case is, and I know Wizard is going to start swearing again, and I don't blame him, well, Bobby Dassey was actually re-interviewed again, right? So they went to his home on November the 17th, 2017. And I quote, Bobby Dassey is interviewed by Special Agent Jeff Wish of the Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigation and Special Investigator John Dietering of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. And what I've done here is I've got a couple of quotes, right? Just have a listen to what these investigators said to Bobby. Investigator Dietering, did you make anything up when you testified? Bobby Dassey, no. And I continue. Everything I told was true. I had no reason to lie. And watch what Bobby says. Deep down inside, I know I didn't do it. And then he goes, it sucks that people are trying to pin it on me and Scott. Yet he had no hesitation to throw his uncle under the bus, right? I continue, right? And this is the same investigation. Have a look at what the investigators said to Bobby now. Bobby goes, I continue. Or, it's like, how many people can you blame it on? And he was referring to Kathleen Zellner. Kathleen Zellner is very suspicious of both Bobby and Scott Tadich. Now, Investigator Witch said this, well, I'll tell you what we want. we want justice for Teresa, for whoever did it. And then he says, just want to get the person that's responsible for doing the really bad deed. And finally he goes, no, we just want you to tell us the truth like you did, and we're good to go. I think Investigator Witch must have forgotten that both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are sitting in prison for life. So what's he saying for whoever did it? We want justice. Well, didn't the county get justice by arresting both Stephen and Brendan? It seems rather weird that this new investigator is talking to Bobby Dassey to see if he can get any additional information. Well, look at slide 12. Well, the motion to vacate, the motion to consider was denied by the same judge. So now Kathleen Zellner has to go to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And of course, guys, we are now waiting for what the state is going to do. Personally, guys, the state wanted an extension of the word limit. That really concerns me a real lot. I don't think it's looking good. All right, but I have to reserve judgment. Okay. Now, in the meantime, Kathleen Zellner is not going to give up. So she, if we have a look at slide number 13, what she did is she went back and she re-examined the notes of Dr. Eisenberg. Now, Dr. Eisenberg, Dr. Leslie Eisenberg, she was the state's forensic anthropologist, and she put up a whole lot of slides in the court showing various parts of the human skeleton. And so what Kathleen Zellner did was she wanted to examine closely the forensic reports done by Dr. Eisenberg. So if we have a look at slide number 14, well, when Kathleen Zellner was reading her reports, lo and behold, she found new examples of human bone fragments. And human bone fragments tended to appear everywhere, but these were new bone deposit sites, right? They had nothing to do with the burn pit. These were human bones that were found elsewhere. But furthermore, when she examined the notes of Dr. Eisenberg, it was discovered that these human bones, they weren't entire bones. They were cut, burnt human bone fragments, right? So this made her very suspicious, because if you read the trial testimonies, Ken Kratz did not want to talk about any bones anywhere but on the Avery salvage yard. Yet here was the state's forensic anthropologist finding all these human bones. What were they? Where did they come from? So let's have a look at slide number 15. Now, thank God for MAM 2, because there are some superb, these photos now have been released, but there's some superb images of the bone fragments that were found. And what strikes you immediately, this is on slide 15, what strikes you immediately is that the bone fragments are very, very tiny. They appear to have been crunched, right? There are no whole bones at all. There are only small bone fragments. But quite clearly, if you look on the right-hand side up the top, towards the middle, there's a bone that is, you can see the slice of the bone, it's gone straight through. Either a knife or a saw has sliced straight through that bone. So there are no long bones at all. There are no entire bones at all, and a huge proportion of the skeletal remains are missing. No one knows where they are. But if you have a look on the right-hand side down the bottom, notice those straight edges. Nature doesn't do straight edges. They are blade cuts. So someone cut up the victim, and in this case, I believe it's Teresa Halbach, into tiny fragments, into tiny pieces. And through the process of cremation, you ended up with bone fragments, exactly what you get when you put a human body through a crematorium. So let's have a look at slide number 16. So what Kathleen Zellner's experts did, and also her staff members, is they started to look at the number tags of the bone fragments, where they actually came from. And they worked out through the ledgers that there were GPS coordinates for these bones, right? Lo and behold, what did Kathleen Zellner find? She found that these bone fragments, human cut bone fragments, were found not on the salvage yard, but they were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And there were 3 such debris piles. Guys, the short of it is that a human being who was basically reduced to bone fragments was being dumped in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. You can't deny it. They were human bones. But importantly, they were cut, burnt human bone fragments. And we know, guys, through our research and through the podcast, there were 3 such areas. Allegedly, Stephen Avery's burn pit, Yonder burn barrel number 2, and now the 3 debris piles that were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Well, you can't deny this. This is bad. This is looking very, very bad for the state. So how did King Kratz handle this fact? Let's have a look at slide number 17. So King Kratz was faced with a big problem, right? The defense didn't strike hard enough, but the defense gave a lot of hints that, hey, there were human cremains that were present off the Avery salvage site. So what did King Kratz do? I quote, "The bones were moved, but they were moved by Mr. Avery. These bones in the quarry, I'm going to take about 20 seconds to talk about, because the best anybody can say is that they are possible human. What does possible human mean? Well, it means we don't know what it is, all right? Now, look what he says. He goes, the best anthropologists in the world don't know what these bones are. Dr. Eisenberg didn't know what they were. Dr. Fairgrieve didn't know what they were. He agreed with that. And you heard a stipulation being read to you by a person by the name of Les McCurdy. Stipulation just means an agreement between the parties that these bones, we felt it important enough, we sent out to the FBI. And Les McCurdy from the FBI determined that these bones were so degraded, that they were in such a shape that even through testing, what's called mitochondrial DNA testing, whether they are human or not, could not, even by the FBI, be determined. End quote. So the bones in the quarry are really not evidence in this case. And so Mr. Strang has made a big deal out of showing you maps and a little flag and things like that about possible bones. Note the following, what he says. Again, speculation, conjecture is not part of this case. Facts are going to be what decides this case. Now, what I did, right, I took this testimony and I gave it to a set of experts. And I said to them, look, guys, what is your comment about the last thing that King Kratz said? And guys, if we turn to slide number 18, oh, well, I think you can gauge by the response of what they thought about King Kratz. And I'll say it again. And think about this, because this is going to haunt him. He said, again, speculation, conjecture is not part of this case. Facts are going to be what decides this case. And if you've been following the podcast, the only person who is speculating and conjecturing all the time is none other than Ken Kratz himself. All right, guys, we're nearly finished. Well, if we have a look at slide number 19, now this is chilling. right? Now, Kathleen Zellner doesn't muck around. She got her own forensic anthropologist who's an expert on bones, cremations, fires, etc., etc. And she said to Dr. Symes, okay, here's Dr. Eisenberg's report. There are cut human bone fragments everywhere. What does that tell you? What would you conclude from this? And what he said was chilling. Dr. Symes said, it's highly suspicious you have some dismemberment going on, right? So the victim was cut to pieces, cut into smaller fragments. Now, if we have a look at what Brendan Dassey said, and this is crucial, right? This was during an interrogation session. I'll read it out. I quote, Brendan, he had her hands and I had her feet. A Uyghur. Okay, did you like swing her like this type of thing or like what? Brendan, no, he was like on one side of the fire and I was on the other and we set her on there. Straight away that tells you that Brendan Dassey never ever mentions that Teresa Horbach was indeed dismembered. That is absolute utter proof that Brendan Dassey had no idea what he was talking about, right? So again, another important fact could not be corroborated with what Brendan had just told Mark Uyghur. And clearly, you dismember somebody first and cut them to pieces and then burn them, not the other way, right? So again, this was good, strong evidence to suggest Brendan never, one, saw Teresa Horbach, and two, was involved in any crime involving Teresa Horbach. So guys, let's have a look at slide number 20. Well, Dr. Symes is no fool. What he did was he actually looked at the bone fragments, and lo and behold, this is in yonder burn barrel number 2. You can see with the red arrow here, there's a straight blade cut, right? And that could only be done by a saw, a very fine blade saw. This is called a hesitation cut mark. It means that someone starts to hack into a bone and then stops. So it's called a hesitation cut mark. But you can clearly see that a mark like that doesn't occur in nature. This was done by a cutting tool. And so what Dr. Symes did, if we have a look on the right-hand side, he got a bone and he used various blades to make cuts. So that way he can actually determine what type of blade had done the cut marks in the bones, right? That's the proper way to do things. So if we have a look at slide number 21, well, this is quite chilling. You can see right in front of Dr. Symes is a deer dressing kit. There's no question about it. Those knives and the blades, including a hacksaw, will reduce a human being to fragments, into chunks, because those knives and blades are what is used to dress down a deer, basically to dismember a deer. And so Dr. Symes knows that particular blades were used to put the cut marks in the bones that were found, at least in yonder burn barrel number 2 and also in the quarry. All right, so let's have a look at slide number 22. We're nearly finished, guys. Well, a press conference was done, and on November the 9th, you have Sheriff Pagel. He comes on and he goes, look, we found these cremains at the salvage site, and as you can see down below, Bibi, do you want to tell us a little bit about that picture on the left-hand side? What's your favorite saying? Bibi?
The bones came in a box and they left in a box too.
Correct.
There's
Correct.
the picture of them in the box. Yes.
Correct. And so we have this major problem whereby you have to have faith. You have to have faith that those bones actually came from the burn pit, Stephen Avery's burn pit. we've got the reality is we actually have no idea where those bones had actually come from, right? Now, I want to ask a very important question here, and I'll say to the panel, who is missing from the crime scene, right? I'll give you a little hint. Remains were found. Who's missing from this crime scene? Anybody got any answer?
Would that be a
Big Jeff.
coroner? Would that be a coroner?
A coroner.
Oh my God!
No.
It's absolutely appropriately named, this podcast, because I'm seething, waiting to talk.
Well, hold your bullets. Well, of course, if we have a look at slide 20, if we have a look at slide 23, yeah, the person who's missing from the crime scene is Deborah Kakach, and she is actually the Manitowoc County coroner. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because the girls, the Powder Puff team, are going to actually do a presentation regarding the coroner. But essentially, normally what happens is that when there's a murder, when there's a body, when there are human cremains, it's normal that you call the state coroner to come in and investigate, right? And the coroner has many, many roles. And one of them, of course, is to examine a body, cremains, determine what had happened. But the important thing about the coroner is that the coroner has got the ultimate power. In Wisconsin, the coroner has the ultimate power to even fire the sheriff. Now, quite clearly, nobody told the coroner that that there was a cremains found at the Avery salvage yard, and the coroner found out about it. Now, wait for it, on television, right? So, Deborah Kakach actually appeared on the stand, and she was beginning to be questioned by Dean Strang. And guess what? I think it was Garn who interjected, and lo and behold, the state coroner, before she can actually go into any detail, she was excused. She was told to leave the stand. So if we have a look at slide number 24, Mark Wiegert, right, one of the co-lead investigators, he forgot to tell the state coroner that bones were found at the Avery salvage yard. And the day after, when Deborah went to a meeting, Peterson basically threatened her with arrest. So basically, if she appeared at the Avery salvage yard, she'll be put in prison. She'll be arrested, right? So we'll discuss it later, of course. What are the implications of when you don't have a coroner appearing at the scene of a death, or the scene of a murder, scene of a crime? So, guys, if we have a look at slide number 25, we're nearly done, guys. This is really tragic. And I quote, 6 months after Stephen's trial, Deborah Kakach announced her resignation after 15 years as Manitowoc County coroner. And I quote, she goes, I love my job. But her concern was, and I quote, when was going to be the next threat? So, she was threatened with arrest, intimidation by her own fellow colleagues. She did not feel safe going out at night time, and she said, I had to end it. And that's pretty remarkable. But again, guys, I don't want to go into too much detail. I believe that the girls, the Powder Puff team, are going to be doing a special presentation on the state's coroner. And guys, my final slide. And we can see here a montage. An absolute montage, and the montage is this, and that is, we can see Stephen's life, and we can see here on the top left hand corner, he's happy, he's smiling, he's with his wife, he's got 2 newborn sons, twins, he's got 5 children, he's happy. But his whole life went into turmoil. He was falsely accused of a vicious rape on Penny Bernston. We know the story. He got exonerated because of one pubic hair, and it found out that the DNA actually had belonged to Gregory Allen. He was released. And of course, He did a $36 million lawsuit. And guys, this is remarkable. Out of every possible person in Wisconsin, the only person that got arrested, apart from Brendan, who it was only by testimony only, the only person in Wisconsin, in the state, who got arrested for the murder of Teresa Hobart was the only person who just happened to have a lawsuit against the MTSO, the sheriff, and the DA, Dennis Vogel. And I think the picture showing Kathleen Zorner is very apt. It's a pensive one, and I felt a very controlled rage. Look, thank you guys. That's the end of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. And guys, I'd like to open it up to the panel. Oh, this is going to be bad. Fire away, guys. Do we have any questions? Big Jeff.
So what I would just like to briefly talk about is the fact that the crime scene was expanded by 2 miles.
Uh-oh.
Just think about taking a sort of a compass and putting it on Stephen's house and drawing a 2-mile radius around his house. 2 miles.
Correct.
That's unbelievable. And we have the dispatch calls. I believe that Jerry Buting, talked to Millbilly, said we didn't have these calls. And the one in particular, take a look at Millbilly's channel. He actually posted the video yesterday. Bones found 2 miles.
Yes.
It talks about the fact that they're searching and they're finding bones and they're putting them into these 5-gallon pails.
Correct.
And this goes back to exactly what you were talking about. There's no coroner to do a proper grid. We don't know whether or not what geographic distance, if, like BB said, if they came in a box and somebody just take them and throw them like you'd empty a pail of water, were there little fire areas around where you might have found them? Just the lack of our ability to be able to reproduce how they were found, the situation that they were found in.
Documentation.
Thank you, BB.
Yes.
It makes me see. It's just not. It's not right that it was conducted like that, and it all goes back to the fact that a proper documented investigation was not arranged by the person who was supposed to do it, which was a coroner. Now,
Correct.
There is perhaps a point to the fact that Manitowoc was supposed to be a laughable point. That Manitowoc was supposed to be conflict of interest. They weren't supposed to be involved. So who do they not send? The only person that's not been involved in Stephen Avery since 1985.
He's the coroner. He's the coroner.
Better keep her away.
Correct. Yeah. Look.
But
yes. Keep going, Big Jeff.
Yeah. So, but they did have at a later time. I do believe the Calumet coroner did show up.
Yes.
But this is long after.
Correct.
Bones were put into pails.
Correct.
Any chance of getting any forensic information about how they ended up there? It was
yes.
Big and the way that they're scattered. One more quick point. The way that they're scattered around almost speaks to me of sort of a foiled plot, right? They were able to get a little bit into Stephen's burn pit, but they found a neat little pile in Stephen's burn pit, as if he would leave that, right? He cleans the crap out of the garage, but he somehow manages to get this neat little pile of bones. Why do they need to spread the bones out elsewhere? Because obviously to me, because they just, maybe it was Bear. He barked too much. Maybe they were lucky to get that piece in that they did. But they had to get rid of him. So what did they start to do? They started to, throw the little piles of bones that they were able to burn elsewhere, and probably bury the rest of the torso at Cuss Road.
Correct. And look, we can discuss this for hours. And I was on Brownie. Yes. Do you have a comment?
I've got some questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Have you got an hour? So I saw that Millbilly video the other day about the ambulance, and was Bushman potentially in there?
Yes.
Just a quick question on that was, can you do it? Is the ambulance radio on the same frequency as the dispatch calls, or is it a separate thing? And if so, has anyone done a freedom of information request for those radio calls?
Yeah, that I don't know, but Big Jeff may know. Big Jeff?
Yeah. So that what we certainly lack. If you look at the dispatch calls that Millbilly has, they come in two different forms. One you need a special player for, and it's actually the sort of the actual police recording. There's multiple channels on that recording that include what they call a whisper channel, which include the 911 calls, which include a whole bunch of things, and that's from Calumet, and they would have that if it were Calumet. I believe this ambulance came from Manitowoc, if I'm not mistaken. Manitowoc, we only have a collection of MP3s. We don't have all the channels.
Yes.
Sadly, and shockingly, the Manitowoc information has been lost to history.
Oh,
you can't believe it.
I wonder why.
I know. I'm sure it's a complete accident, Dr. Silkman. I would not attribute any malice to it.
Yes, of course not. Of course not.
That's a great question, but yeah, sadly we don't have it.
Yes. BB.
Conveniently, that's all I want to say.
Correct. Brownie, do you have another question?
Yes, I've got a few actually.
Go for it.
So one of the questions where she says about the bones being possible human, I was just wondering, I don't know if anyone here knows, but are there any animals that are hunted in Manitowoc that have a similar bone structure?
Well, the potential animals that would be in that area, correct me if I'm wrong, BB, because I'm not from Wisconsin, but it will normally be deer and possibly bear. Would that be right, BB?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So is the bone structure
sometimes
similar?
We allow them to shoot wolves in certain areas and certain other things at times, but yeah, those are the two major.
The two major ones. The thing is, Brownie, is that the anatomy of a deer pelvis and likely a bear and a human being are very, very different. The pelvic structure is different. The bone structure is different. The size of the bone. But the important distinguishing feature is the morphology of the bone inside. So if you slice open one of the bones, you can tell the immediate difference between an animal bone and a human bone. Now, one of the things that Dr. Eisenberg was charged with was that she had to determine the difference between a human and an animal bone. The way you do it is you cut open the bone and you examine it under a microscope. Do you realize that Dr. Eisenberg, in a court of law, said, I didn't want to do that, and she was asked, why not? Because I was scared that I might damage the bone. So even though there were many, many bone fragments, she actually refused to slice open the bones and examine it under a microscope because it would have told her in 30 seconds that it was a human or animal bone. But we can go one step further. The actual pelvic fragment, if you have a look at the diagram is present on page 2, slide 2. The bone is actually sliced open already. And you can see the honeycomb pattern of the bone, and you can see the cortical layer, which is the outer layer. And even Eisenberg admitted that's exactly what I would find in a human bone. So yes, it is a human bone, but she was too scared to admit it in the law.
It just seems like that she didn't present any other potential
No.
species. Just as it's possible human. So
correct.
You could say, it's possibly human or it's possibly deer. Then that's kind of,
Yes.
She didn't do that.
Yes.
She just said, it's possibly
correct.
human.
She didn't want to commit because Bibi will tell you that Eisenberg was involved in the Christine Rudy case, in which she thought animal bones were actually human fetal, right? So she made a huge blunder. So I'm sure Ken Kratz said, whatever you do, don't say they're human because you have a problem.
And it was right before this date.
Correct.
Yeah, it was just
correct.
Yeah.
I think Christine Rudy
Ken,
was
Ken,
murdered
Ken
within
Kratz,
12 days.
Yeah, 12
Sorry,
or
Brownie.
14, something like
Correct.
that. Yes.
Correct.
I was going to say, because Ken Kratz in his closing statement said that the best anthropologists in the world couldn't decide if it's human or not. So
whereas,
one of the questions is are Fairgrieve and Eisenberg the best anthropologists in the world?
But not by a long shot.
Were they at the time? Did they have a prize or anything, saying so, like a Nobel Prize for anthropology, anything like that?
Yes, not by a long shot.
Because when you see Eisenberg's testimony on Ma'am in court, she's not doesn't come across as the most confident.
No. She was terrified. She was absolutely terrified, and she knew that if she had said the wrong thing, she was in big trouble.
That's it. If she'd come out and said, "Yeah, I can't say if that bone's human,"
correct,
thing like that, then that would have been okay. But when you see the whole thing, she's shitting herself all the way through it.
Yes, but the irony is this, Brownie. There were human bones in the same burn pile, as in the same debris pile, and there were two others, and they were human, right? So she identified them as human, but she refused to say that pelvic fragment was human. You know why? Because allegedly Bennett said he found another human pelvic bone in that box, and he said, yeah, this is from an adult human female, right? But he only examined part of a pelvic fragment. So the other part of her pelvis was Big Jeff? 2 miles away? How are you going to explain that? Yeah, how are you going to explain how part of her pelvis is in the Avery salvage yard burn pit and the other part of her pelvis is 2 miles away? You can't.
Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask was about how did the bones get in the Manitowoc gravel pit? And
well,
how do you access the gravel pit? How do you get in there?
Apparently, there are roads that you can drive straight in, or what you can get to the quarry quite easily. The quarry, some of those quarries, there's a Redonce quarry, but there's also the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which belongs obviously to the Manitowoc County. There are roads that go in and out. It's easy to get access there.
There was also a Michael's quarry.
Correct, Michael's quarry.
That one little piece of bone was found at, the one with the meat, supposedly.
Correct.
So it's quite easy to get from like the end of Cross Road to those quarries without having to go back on the highway.
Correct. There were back roads. If you had like a golf cart or a motorbike or a small vehicle, you can easily get in there and out. No problems at all. Trucks drive in and out. So there's no problems about access.
Trucks and trucks with heavy equipment on them too.
Correct. Yes, correct. Okay, guys, do we have any other questions? Brownie, have you finished with your questions?
I've got more, but I'll come back later. Let someone else have
no problems at all. And Neverly, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, and I had comments too. However, Brownie and you actually covered it all. So that's all. My only thing is that who feels so comfortable to be in the Manitowoc quarry and not afraid to be caught? You know what I mean?
People that come from people that have got access to that gravel pit.
Yeah.
Right? They've obviously got no qualms being there.
Yeah.
Was it? Did people actually work there? Was there any sort of security guards or anything like that, or was it just?
I'm not sure whether it was the Manitowoc County gravel pit or Redonce. I think it was Redonce. There were workers there. There were heavy machinery there. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Yeah. On Redonce, there was equipment running like all day long, very noisy equipment, I guess, until late in the evening too.
Correct. So, Brownie, it was an active quarry. There were heavy machinery trucks, workers there all the time. So it was an active quarry. All right, guys. Do we have any other questions? Big Jeff.
Yeah, you made an excellent point on the podcast the other night. I thought it might be worth reiterating here about the fact that there were no duplicate bones found.
Yes, correct. Jerome, just hold on 1 second. Yeah, one important thing is that when Eisenberg looked at all the cremains, she came up to the conclusion that it was all from one victim, right? Approximately 60% of the skeletal remains have never been found. I think only 35% of the skull was recovered, and all the teeth were missing, bar 2 teeth roots that Dr. Simley had to glue together. Yes, I was on the podcast with Millbilly, Big Jeff, and it was a very, very interesting series of discussions. Those phone calls, the calls involving law enforcement, especially involving bushmen and other law enforcement officers, really put the spotlight on Cuss Road. Something obviously happened at Cuss Road, which is of major, major importance. But yes, we're dealing with one victim, and about 60% of the remains are missing. Only 35% of the skull was ever recovered, and there were no teeth. The teeth were missing. So if you want to identify a victim, you normally do it using teeth. A BB.
I wonder what they would have found if they'd have went 3 miles out.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can actually hear it, Big Jeff and BB. You can actually hear it in the voices of the calls. They were getting worried because they thought they had recovered everything. They were finding more and more remains, and that's why I believe they requested between 40 to 60 more officers to go and search. And they said, now we need to search in smaller areas, because they were terrified they're going to find more bones, more cremains all over the place, right? But the mere fact that Eisenberg said we have one victim. Well, we know there's one person who's missing. That's Teresa Orbach, right? Yes, one can argue the DNA results are not definitive. That is true. But we're talking about one victim. And it's amazing that Ken Kratz had the gall to say, don't worry about the bones on the Manitowoc County Grove pit. They're not part of evidence. Well, excuse me, your own forensic anthropologist says, hey, they all come from one person, right? So that's very interesting. Who's got a question?
Me.
Jerome.
If I can.
You betcha.
There is a lot of things to say, but first of all, wow, congratulations for you are all really amazing. Yeah, there is a lot. There is a lot of things to do. First of all, this is not question. This is more about my own research.
Yes.
I'm agree with Casey when she said this is more political than we think, because in the law on Wisconsin, the law 910.9.01 inform that the coroner must be informed in the case.
Yes.
And in it is the law. And in this case, it's a huge red flag. And about the bones they find, that's mean for me, but it's just my opinion. They find human bones and animal bones. Why nobody asks the question if it's possible the body was burned with another animals?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, if you burning flesh from an animal, you disguise the burning smell.
Yeah,
if you're burning human body parts.
Absolutely.
So, and if anybody walks past you and says, "Hey, mate, what's that smell?" You just, I'm burning a deer. Right?
Absolutely.
He's going to question you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one's going to question you. Correct. Excellent point.
I would just add to that point that that is even further more exculpatory towards Stephen, because we already know that it takes a tremendous amount of energy, fuel to burn cremains, and if you had to burn something else with it, that's all the more fuel you need for that fire. And the amount of brush he had from Radon, and even if he used cans of gasoline, it's just not enough.
Right.
Correct.
Correct. I agree with you, and that's my other point. That's why I think they have recovered just 20% of the bones. This is very, very bizarre, because I think, this is my theory, they find the most hardest part of the body to cremate is the torso.
Yes.
And I think
yes.
I think they find the torso of maybe Teresa on Cuss Road, and after they have mixed up with animal bones to put on the Avery salvage yard. But there's a lot of issues there, because normally we recover, I don't know how it is in pound, but in kilogram it's approximately 5 kilo.
Yeah.
From a human body at the same size of Teresa, and and there you will find just 20% of the bones.
Correct.
And this is very bizarre, because they have find a partial fragment of teeth and one root. One root. But where are the other teeth? And the teeth are really hard to burn.
They're very, very hard. But not only that, Jerome, the other thing is that people use teeth to bore into to extract DNA.
Right.
So someone clearly did not want the identity of those cremains to be known. I mean, for someone to actually remove the teeth, or maybe the jaw that contain the teeth, this is serious. It's absolutely serious. And you're right, Jerome. Where's the rest of the body?
Yes, absolutely. And I think they found the body on Cuss Road. But this is just a theory for me now.
Yes.
And I think when they find the body, they don't want to real investigator who was involved in this case. That's why they asked to Bushman to go to the ambulance.
Correct.
Because he was retired. And I think that's the point.
Correct. But also he was Manitowoc.
Absolutely.
So what's he doing there? Right? I mean, I've got my theory. I think
exactly.
I think the picture is now starting to emerge, especially with Mill Billy's phone calls. I think it's starting to emerge pretty clear now. Thank you, Jerome. Neville, do you have a comment?
Yes, Dr. Silkman, when you said about the trunk that they found it over there, which is kind of logical because all those big bones are missing the spine and the ribs, how would they have identified that? But that wasn't my question. My question was, what's Bushman doing out of retirement there just for one day or for 8 hours that he was there?
Well, I mean, look, we can discuss it but I'll do a quick version. You get Bushman in because he comes in, he comes out, and you make sure that he doesn't get placed on the stand. So the theory, or what I believe actually happened, was that her torso, without a head, without arms, without legs, were partially buried at Cuss Road. And they found the torso. So I would say what's happened is that Bushman came in early. He was part of the cleanup crew. So he would have likely have come in, dug up the torso, put it in a body bag or some type of container. And we discussed this, and Big Jeff will say it. It's likely he just simply went in the ambulance and said, "Let's go, boys." And what happened to the torso after that, whether the torso was cremated, I don't know. But I don't think it was actually used at all because, like you said, Neverly, there's an absence of spinal cord and also ribs. And you know what's really scary here? This is exactly what Sean Rudy did to his wife. Cut her up, dismembered her, and threw her torso in the river. Well,
exactly.
And
if
burnt
they
up the limbs.
Correct. If they found the torso at Cuss Road, then likely the whole idea of Bushman was to come in like a covert operation. Take the torso out, dig up the dirt, sanitize the area, bring in the dogs. The dogs will go, no, there's no scent here. So therefore,
ambulance is there.
Yes.
Take it away.
Yes, take it away. Take Bushman away because Millbilly showed the sign in and sign out sheets. So potentially you can remove but I would say it was the torso because there's a huge number of bones in the torso. You got the spinal column, you've got the major ribs, right? And one thing you don't find is one rib bone. You don't find any spinal column at all. So what's happened? And if you have a look at the pelvis, the way the pelvic bones are cut, the way the pelvic bones are cut means that the torso is gone. You can't do those cuts straight through the pelvic bone with the torso there. The torso has been removed. So the victim was cut up into pieces. And just one thing, guys, before you chime in. What I forgot to say was Dr. Symes, the anthropologist for Kathleen Zellner, said he's been involved in a lot of murder cases where people have been dismembered and burnt. And people got frustrated because the hardest part of the body to dispose of was the torso. So what they do is they take the torso and they bury it. Well, lo and behold, that's exactly what we find at Cuss Road. Sammy, do you have a comment?
Well, there's a question here from YouTube by Jazznaz. Would JB get called to the stand if it does go to trial?
Jerome Buting?
I'm assuming that, but I don't know. I would say that's what they're asking.
Well, is that with regard to the fact that Jerome had told Bill Billy that they didn't have that dispatch? I suspect that he might be called to confirm that. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's no doubt now with the research work that Millbilly and others have done on those calls. It's now pretty. I think the clues are right there. Jack 61.
There were other things besides that particular call that Beauty swore an affidavit to that they didn't have. Talking about the CD again. Remember?
Yes.
So I'll have to say he probably would be called to the stand to testify.
Yes, inassistent. What is it called again? Ineffective assistance of counsel. Yeah. Yes, correct. Neverly, do you have a comment?
Yeah, back to the stump, Dr. Silkman. Maybe that would explain the lack of that foul, horrible smell.
Yes, because it
wasn't burnt.
Correct.
And the guts were not burnt.
In the GI tract, you've got a lot of the stomach, the pancreas, the liver, the lungs, the bile duct. Correct. You've got everything there. The bowel, a lower, upper bowel. Oh yeah, it's going to be nasty. Now, you don't know if it was a torso, whether it was partially clothed, there was a piece of jewelry. Obviously, they must have linked the torso to Teresa Halbach. They had to have.
I'm going to quit my day job because their job sucks. Could you imagine that's your job to find limbs and torsos?
Well, put it this way. Here's the problem, guys. If you're saying that Teresa Halbach never left the Avery salvage yard, what's her torso doing at Cuss Road? I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant here. Of course, it would have destroyed the state's case. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Well, and it can't be a whole torso because the hip's sawed into and the pelvic bone is removed from it.
Correct. Look, obviously someone knew anatomy. Someone had to have known anatomy, maybe dismemberment of an animal. I pray to God that it put it this way, it is exactly what Sean Rudy did, right?
Well, they couldn't have known
wife.
anatomy too good because they cut into the end of that hip bone there. That's a mistake when you would be cutting up an animal. Or unless that was done on purpose to expose the honeycomb part, so that way they can say it's human.
Honestly, I don't know. But someone knew what they were doing. I mean, to dismember a human being, that's a pretty big job.
But also wouldn't know what they were doing to cut off that little bit of the hip bone with that flat edge sticking out, with the flat edge showing.
Correct. I mean, I don't know.
Because you miss the hip bone if you were going to cut up, let's say, an animal, so it's less gross at the moment.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to cut into that hip bone. That's a waste of time. You'd go just above it, where all you had to cut through is the spine.
Correct. Yes, you're right. Where they cut
through.
So
I think it shows less known about anatomy.
Possible.
Unless it was deliberately done for some purpose.
That I don't know. I would say that they're basically trying to reduce the body to as smaller fragments as possible for transportation. You put them in plastic bags. No one's going to know the difference. You carry part of a torso of a deer. No one's going to stop you, right? You bring them all to a burn barrel. You burn them all. No one's going to know a thing, right? So that's the scary part. Brownie.
Yeah, I was just going to say about cutting up of the body. If they've got experience of cutting up deer or other animals, if this was their first time they've cut a human up, there's potential they're going to make mistakes and cut bones they're not meant to do. So, unless you've got someone who's got lots of practice cutting up a dead body, I think it's fair enough for them to make the odd mistake.
Yes. Put it this way: it wasn't done by someone with a vast degree of anatomical knowledge, but they did the damage. And you're right, the hip bone, the way the pelvic fragment was cut, where it was cut, that was a bizarre cut. You're correct, but to me, I think it's pretty obvious that I think what was found at Cuss by Bushman, he was part of the searchers, the so-called searchers. It was him. I don't know what alerted him to that particular location, because from reading the testimonies, they were subdivided into smaller groups and smaller teams to search, but he definitely found something at Cuss. Jerome.
Yes, I have a question about the cut. Can we determine if the cut was post-mortem or not? Because it's more easy to cut and break a bone body than a human body. The bones are more fragile.
Yes, but you see, Dr. Eisenberg was asked about, she didn't find any fracturing, as in unusual fracturing in the bones. So it's hard to determine when the victim was cut up. Obviously, she was dead, but you mean whether she was cut up after being burnt?
Yes.
Or before being burnt?
Yes.
Well, normally one would, for me, it made sense to dismember somebody first and then burn them up. And the reason why you do that is you dismember to make the body fragments smaller, so they're more efficient to burn in, say, a burn barrel.
I agree with you.
But it depends, like I said, it depends on what they found at Cuss Road. If it's a torso, who knows whether it was partially burnt, whether the organs were still intact. I don't know. I don't know, Jerome.
In the theory, it's a theory, but in the theory of the killer of Teresa had burned Teresa with another animals. After he took the burn bones, and he broke the bones. And after
Correct.
he go to the quarry, the salvage yard, and to
dump.
put to put the bones, and that's why we found animal bones and human bones. But it's
Correct.
just a theory. It's just a theory.
Correct. You're right. There were a mixture of bones. There were some burnt bones and unburnt bones, animal bones.
Yeah.
But here's the scary thing. Is it possible that part of her body is still out there somewhere?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a scary thing. She
Yes,
could be
it's really
buried
scary.
somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
she could be buried somewhere else. They may have not found all of her. And that's the frightening part.
Yes.
But you have to admit, Jerome, it's easier to plant bones on Stephen's property and a burn barrel than try and put a torso because everyone would have noticed a torso. Oh, what's that hand sticking up for? Whatever, all jokes aside. But when you've got bones, you can easily place them wherever you want. Sammy, do you have a question?
Yeah, Matzer Coroner asked, how accurate can the percentage of bones be calculated when the weight of the bones varies depending on how long they are burned?
What they do is they weigh the bones from a cremation. You're correct. Fresh bones that contain the marrow and organic material are going to weigh more because they've got organic matter within the bone structures themselves. But they actually know the weight of cremated bones. So what they do is they can work out a percentage of what a weight a human being should be based on their height, etc., etc. So they knew Teresa Halbach's height, her age, and so they were able to work out a percentage of what her bones should be. And because they were cremated bones, there's no bone marrow. So the bones would weigh slightly less because there's no internal structure to the bones. It's all gone. So don't worry, all of that has been calculated. And so they know that a huge percentage of her bone mass is gone, missing. So what Eisenberg did was she weighed each percentage of bone from, like skull, shoulders, legs, arms, etc. So she knew what was present and what was missing, right? And had she done a proper bone characterization, I said this on the live the other day, we actually could have worked out what part of the body was missing, right? Because there's no representative bones, right? They're missing, right?
Yeah, there's nothing majorly distinguishable that should be there.
That's right. There's no long spinal column. There are no long rib bones. And Dr. Syme said that the hardest part of the body to burn are the ribs and also the spinal column.
So I've got a few more questions. One is Nothing But a Stump asked, why do you suppose the
nothing
liars,
but a stump, nothing but a stump.
Yes, and planters even admitted into their evidence the partial print?
Are you going to have to say that one again? Because what I was thinking was nothing but a stump.
Right.
Yep. What was the
Why do you suppose the liars and planters even admitted into evidence the partial print?
The partial print found where? On the RAV or where?
I think it's about A23, right?
Well, if you look at it, Sharit Cohen Deep Sixth A23. She never mentioned it at all until some smart attorney said, "Oh, by the way, you found some blood on that back door, didn't you?" And that's when she had to actually talk about A23. Otherwise, she never would have mentioned it. And I think it was Storkey who called her over and said, "You better take a swab of that." So Storkey, I think it was, that had noticed the blood on the door handle, and also there was a print. Now, of course, if they're trying to frame Stephen, right, they're taking a gamble. They don't know whose prints they belong to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And quite clearly, Stephen never touched the car on the outside. right? Because there's none of his blood on the outside, nor prints. So he somehow magically secreted himself in the vehicle with his nephew and somehow magically glided out. And the only thing he left...
It's entirely possible that could have actually been entered into evidence by mistake.
Well, the trouble is she did the swab. So she didn't know whose blood that was. So she had to record it down as A23. Lo and behold, what do we find? It excluded Stephen. It excluded Brendan. It can't be Teresa's. So now we have, as I said to you before, we have a third genomic profile on that RAV. That's dynamite. That's dynamite.
Could you expand a little bit on how, if somebody could physically see the blood on the back of the RAV, how that would be more than enough blood to test to get a full profile?
Oh, well, normally I think what Stolke said was that what they do is they obviously use a light, right? And they walk around the RAV, the vehicle, on the outside, and they look for any stains. And what they do is they take a swab and they do a phenolphthalein test. So if it tests positive for blood, they do another swab and they do DNA testing. Put it this way, if you can see blood, there's enough to do DNA. No problems. There's enough to do DNA. But lo and behold, in Culhane's hands, she only got a partial profile. That's bizarre. Brownie.
Yeah, I was just wondering. There's I don't know the name of it, but there is a sort of big database in America for DNA for people who are criminals.
CODIS.
That's the one. Yeah. Just wondering, is there a similar one for to record law enforcement? Because obviously, if potential that they are at a crime scene and contaminate it, would they then check to, say they find some DNA and it comes up as that law enforcement person that could then,
Yeah, look, the obvious thing to do, Brownie, is that everybody who went round that RAV, you eliminate them as potential donors of that blood, right? So normally at a crime scene, if there's 3 or 4 detectives, they actually do the DNA and fingerprint swabs of those detectives, just in case their fingerprints or DNA ends up on as part of the crime scene, right? So their elimination prints, and none of that was done, right? We don't know who A23 belongs to or CX, which is blood in the quarry. Jack 61.
We also forget about A13. A13 was one of the memory cards, the SD memory card.
Yes, correct. That's right. Correct.
And it had a blood stain on it. And also,
yes,
if you remember Stalky's notes, if you read through these bench notes, they're really kind of hard to read. But underneath that back seat, there are more something. I don't think he ever says it's blood, but he doesn't say. But there's more something underneath there.
Yes. Well, what Culhane, thank you, Jack 61. What Culhane said was, we don't test all the blood droplets. We don't test all the evidence. So if there's 5 or 6 stains or whatever, she might test 2 or 3. So essentially, when they found Teresa Horbach's profile, when they found Stephen Avery's profile, they stopped. That's exactly what they did. They just stopped. Jerome.
That's thorough.
Yeah, correct. Jerome.
Yes, thank you. You are all really brilliant. Really, it's amazing. You are all really amazing. I have 2 points of the ref 4 I want to discuss.
Yes.
This is a question I ask me all the time. Tell me if I'm right. This is of her ref 4, okay? And she had this ref 4 during the last 5 or 6 years, I think.
Yes.
So she's not the only one who go in this referral. She go with her friend, she go with another person. And when they have made the research inside the RAV4, they find any prints, fingerprints, or DNA, or hair, or what else, of another person. That's a question I ask me all the time. Because if it was the Teresa's vehicle, there is many fingerprints inside the RAV4.
Yes, they found.
And she'd just been camping with Kelly Pitson shortly before that on a camping trip in the RAV.
Correct.
Yeah, the Ryan Yeager's girlfriend.
Yes.
I have often wondered that very same thing, Jerome.
The answer is no. The only DNA profiles that they found inside the RAV4 is Teresa Halbach with her blood in the cargo area. They found her saliva in the cherry Pepsi can at the front, and they found 6 drops of blood that allegedly came from Stephen Avery. There's
but
also
no fingerprint.
None from him. They found
but not
8
from
sensor prints.
Teresa too.
They don't know who they belong to. They don't know who they belong to. And unless Teresa Halbach was involved in a crime and actually left fingerprint cards, how are you going to get her fingerprints? Where are you going to get her fingerprints from?
Yeah.
So that's the problem, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
right.
They're the only 2 genetic profiles in the RAV.
Yeah, you're right.
And there is a third one outside the RAV.
Yes.
The blood A23. No one knows who that belongs to. Sammy, do you have a question?
Yeah. Paul Capaldi's asking.
He's a troublemaker, that guy.
A question regarding KZ's controlled rage. How does your panel feel that will manifest? I'd say within her work ethics, she's very good at this.
Yes. I think Wizard is going to answer that question. Wizard?
Oh. I did have something, but it's just gone right out of my fucking head. I'll be right back.
So funny. Also, Catherine on here is asking, wasn't the light removed from evidence, inspected and repackaged at the time KZ was trying to get a hold of it? What was the point of that exercise? Food for thought.
I think that cleaned up. I think that cleaned up.
Polish it up good for Kathleen. So it's pretty.
Correct. That cleaned up. There's no doubt. The light's been cleaned. Jack 61.
Yeah, up in another channel here on Discord, Glenn has asked a question of you, Dr. Silkman. Says, what's your presentation on DNA comparing TH and CB? I think he means CB profiles. It says CR. Why did the state compare the charred remains to Karen Halbach sample instead of comparing it to the TH profile taken from the RAV and the PAP?
Well, the testing that was done it wasn't bones. No bones have been tested. It would have been muscle tissue. So basically what they were trying to do is do mitochondrial DNA testing. That's why they used Karen Halbach as well. So the thing about mitochondrial DNA is it only comes from your mother. So 99.99% of the mitochondria in your body come from your mum. It's maternally. Sometimes it can come from sperm, but the majority come from your mother. So therefore, what they did is mitochondrial DNA testing of the charred remains, and they compared it to Teresa Halbach's mum. They could not exclude the charred remains as not being Teresa. So it could well have been Teresa Halbach because she had the same mitochondrial sequence as Karen Halbach, right?
Well,
but
half of it, wasn't it? Half of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, because her mitochondria, the mother's mitochondria, showed what's known as heteroplasmy. It means that half of her mitochondria had one particular DNA sequence, the other half had another DNA sequence, was just a one base difference. But the cremains had one of those sequences. So there's no doubt the two are matched. The cremains.
Well, and it wasn't even the cremains; it was that piece of meat.
Correct. Muscle tissue, charred muscle tissue. So it was a match. But, and I know what BB's going to say. What we have to do is to get a full genomic profile from the bones. And the state gave back the bones to the Horbach family, even though Kathleen Zellner said, hey, look, I've got an expert who's made a real fancy new machine, the Andy Rapid DNA machine. I can get an answer in 45 minutes. And the state prevented Kathleen Zellner from using the machine by saying that it was not fit for purpose. You can't use it like that. Neverly.
Yeah, you said even though Kathleen Zellner said, I have new technology. It's like as soon as they heard that, they got rid of the bones.
Gone.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Yeah. Sammy, do you have a question?
How ironic is that? Well, we have a question here from Steve Dashel, and he says, will the state appeal the ruling of KZ if KZ wins this motion?
Well, I don't know what the panel thinks, but I don't think they want to give her a motion hearing. Oh, no way. They're going to stop, block, use every legal trick in the book. They don't want her in front of a judge.
So it appears that they're doing everything in their power to avoid this at all cost.
Correct. Because if the state was confident in their verdict, they'll have no issue at all. They'll say, here's the evidence, come back and tell us it was Stephen. But they are terrified because all of us guys, Millbilly, other researchers, they've actually exposed the state. The state is in huge trouble, right? And so they're terrified. They're going to try and block it as much as they can. Jerome, do you have a question?
Yes. Can we come back on the slide 3?
3? Yep.
I don't know how it works in US, but here in Belgium, when we have insurance in our car, we need to put stickers on the front.
Yes.
I don't know. It's the same case for you.
No, we no longer have stickers. You mean like registration?
Stickers for registration.
On the plate?
No, on the plate, on the glass.
On the window?
On the front, on the glass on the front.
Not
on the
in
windshield.
Australia.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
not in Australia.
It's a state by state thing.
Yes.
Okay. Because it was bizarre for me. That's why I asked this question. Because for me, if we find a car like this without the stickers, this specific stickers,
it's abandoned, right?
Exactly.
Oh no! Now that's going to bring up re-RAF theory. No, as far as I'm aware, no, there was.
But I was not aware. I was not aware.
Yes.
So,
correct.
So I'm
correct.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No problems at all. The more questions you ask, the better.
Oh, thank you.
Guys, yeah, no problems.
I
Sammy.
just want to add a little comment to that for Jerome. Here in the state of Arkansas, we only have to have a plate on the back of our car, and we do not have inspections. So there would not also be no inspection sticker, which would further identify the vehicle.
No, absolutely not.
Interesting.
It's interesting. Yes, it's really interesting because in the same way, I don't know how it works for US plates, but in Belgium, when you want a plate, you need to ask to the registry or the office to have specific numbers for your car.
Yes.
This license plates had nothing. How can I say that? Official. So we can replace
Replace.
replace her 100 times if you want, and that's why I think it's weird, because there is nothing on the plate really official. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. But someone from America would have to comment. If you look at slide number 4, are they your typical number plates in the US, BB, Sammy?
Yeah, the number and the letter thing is very common here in Wisconsin.
Right.
Yes.
And
and as far as anything official, they get a sticker on the back plate with the year and the month. There's 2 stickers that go only on the back plate.
Right. Okay. But the number plates, they were folded up, and I think the fireman unfolded them. So, but you can see Wisconsin, America's dairy land. So that to me tends to suggest that it's an official number plate, Jerome. That there's nothing fishy about them. They were taken off the RAV4.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I was answer me the question,
Yes.
because if happen in Belgium, it's a huge red flag too. So
Yes, correct. All right, guys. Do we have any other questions?
Oh yeah, a lot, but I don't know if you have 8 hours.
Thought we were waiting on a wizard. We're waiting on a wizard to talk about the controlled rage.
Yeah. I think that to answer Paul Capaldi's question, it's a great question. It deserves an answer. I'm sure a wizard will use a lot more colorful language than I'm going to use. I think really when you get something like MAM, I mean, and the level of injustice becomes so high. You know, for example, the recent shooting. I can't remember what state it's in, but it was videotaped. Black jogger basically got gunned down by these people. That made national news.
Georgia, New Brunswick, Georgia.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think that's when it becomes blatantly obvious to everyone because of her analysis of the DNA evidence that we're going to have 1985 all over again, and we're going to say, well, how did that happen? And it's going to be, you know, as that evidence starts to emerge, there's going to be tremendous pressure. And it's the same situation as this Georgia shooting, I think, that when people become aware of the level of corruption that happened in this case, they're going to be just as mad. People hate corruption. And I think that's what's going to manifest. It's going to be all over the news, and some people are going to be scampering for the hills.
For sure. I think you've got me. I think you've got me there now, Big Jeff. You've got me riled up. It's a fucking liberty what's going on in Wisconsin. How on earth can that bastard Tom Kasurek put his lieutenants Peterson and his best buddy fucking Herman, to work over a period of 30 years and keep them in line? He must be some fucking mafia don, I'm telling you. He's pulled a master stroke there, Carl. Master criminal. Listen, the only fucking criminal here is Tom fucking Kasurek. He's the one who should belong in jail. What's a scumbag?
Right. Well, thank you. Now, Wizard, you tell us what you really think. Right. But you're correct. And that is why with Stephen Avery's civil lawsuit, it would have gone. There would have been a corruption probe, and people like Kasurek, Peterson, Herman, all of them, Couchet, they're all going to be in huge trouble. Neverly.
Glenn MC from the chat asks, did anyone who's seen the car by 147 ever mention if the car they seen had the plates missing? Or the plates
That's a really good... I don't know. I don't know if Kevin Ramlow mentioned missing plates. That's a really good question. But you see, if the plates were missing, right, then how did Colburn call them in? Right, because he would have been standing in front of the RAV because he called in the plates. So
Right.
it tends to suggest they were still on there.
You're right.
Right. So, the whole idea is that you take off the number plates after and then put them on the property and say, oh, look what Stephen Avery did. He took off the number plates and he put them in plain view so anyone can find them.
The tunnel vision.
Correct. It was tunnel vision. Jack61, do you have a comment?
Back to Paul Capaldi's question.
Yes.
I think that Zellner has, she said it in different cases before, that her strength is knowing the case inside and out. And I think
Correct.
I think that's how she's going, if she's ever allowed to give it, get her evidentiary hearing or whatever happens, if she's allowed to move forward with the case, I think we're going to see her absolutely destroy some people, destroy the state.
Correct. Correct. But don't forget, she's also got an army of experts in various fields that Stephen never had. And like I said, if he had a blood splatter expert and a molecular biologist on board, they would have taken Cohen and Eisenberg apart. Right? And you know what? To me, what I found just completely mind-blowing was that during the Christine Rudy case, guess what they did? They determined whether a bone was human or animal because they did an antibody test. So they've got human antibodies, animal antibodies, and they can determine whether it's human or animal. And that's what they did, was they tested one of the cremains in the burn pit that Sean Rudy had. I think it was at his mother-in-law's place. And they sliced it open, did an antibody test, and that's how they concluded, oh, more animal antibodies are binding. This is not a human bone, it's an animal bone. So if they could do it then, why didn't they do it for this case? Because they were terrified that if it came up human, the case was in pieces, in tatters. And that's really unbelievable. Sammy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, we have a Sherry here on the YouTube.
That's not Sherry Cohen, is it?
I don't know. She says that would never happen. The bones were never there on Avery Salvage Yard. That's a photo op.
Correct. I agree, 100%. There were no bones there. If there were any bones there were probably a handful just thrown on the ground. But in that burn pit, you can't burn a human being. You might be able to cook marshmallows and a chicken, but you're not going to burn a human being. And the #1 world expert in cremations, he laughed at it. He looked at the burn pit and he says, you've got to be joking. Even Wiegert, who interrogated Brendan, said, hey, look, we're talking about a coffee table size burn pit. How are you going to burn a human being in that? There wasn't sufficient
even the
fuel.
Chicken wing didn't burn.
Even the chicken wing didn't burn. Correct. Trust me, that's why they kept the coroner out. They kept the coroner out because she would have gone to the Avery Salvage Yard and Cuss Road. Right? Think about it. She would have been at Cuss Road as well. She would have kicked out Bushman. She would have kicked out Colburn, Lenk, all of them. She would have borne her own forensic expert team, taken photographs, did a grid, and say, this is what we found. That's it. Party over, boys. But by kicking out the coroner, you do all your covert things first, sanitize the scene, get the cremains, bring everything back to the Avery Salvage Yard at night. You got them done like a dinner. And I believe that's how it went down. He was set up. Jerome.
Yes, because it's really interesting, and I have worked on the GFK case a lot of time. I have 41 years in 1 week now, and it seems like a mob job, and
Yes, Yeah, you're talking about the hit to Teresa.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, that's a professional hit.
Yes, absolutely. And when you see the case on all the aspects, you ask yourself if it was not a crime do it by a kind of mafia, because it's really weird and creepy and really political, and that's why I think Brandon is not free, and there is a lot just to say to think, but say
Yes,
a thing to say, but but that's my point of view.
yes.
This took like a mob job, yeah.
It looks like a hitman hit,
Yes,
especially the
absolutely.
bullet to the temple and the back of the head. That's almost a
Yeah,
calling card. That's almost a calling card. I think somebody said in the military it's called a double tap, right? I mean, why are you going to shoot
right,
a female twice in the skull like that?
right.
It also begs the
That's
question as to what else is there about Teresa Hallbeck we have never known.
correct. If she had a
Correct.
secret double life, involving mainly maybe narcotics. And I don't want to spread any rumors here, but that is a vicious hit on a young woman. Wizard, do you have anything to say?
Before we all go, I believe Brendan sits in jail because it's to protect the reputations of evil men who hide
Yes,
behind the flag of law enforcement and all the rest of it, project a false kind of decency and forthrightness, and yet they are just proper filth, all of them. Every one of
correct.
them, from the top to the bottom, and shit only rolls downhill. So let's start with Dennis Vogel. Nasty
Oh,
piece of work. What a
yes,
what a worm.
yes, yes. Well, think about it, Wizard. Thank you for those comments. When did the deposition stop? They stopped at the sheriff and the DA, right? Because they never did a deposition. So the setup had to be quick, had to be fast, couldn't be perfect, but you can see it was progressive. The number one thing that had to be done was to put the RAV on the property. Once you got that, sky's the limit. That's it. Sky's the limit. But they initially had to get the RAV4 on the property. Neverly, do you have any comments?
Yes, and Wiegert had the audacity to say that Stephen had 5 days to clean up, right?
Yes,
And
but it
yeah,
also meant that the planters had several
had
days
5.
to do
Exactly.
it as
Exactly.
well. I
But
think
speaking
with
of, oh, go ahead.
no, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of RAVs,
I think you're breaking up there, Neverly.
I'm not hearing her.
Yes. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
Just quickly to while Neverly gets herself back, to emphasize your previous point, Kasurik's deposition was scheduled to be November 10th. Stephen Avery is arrested
on
November
November 9th. Correct.
It was
that
cut it a little close.
That's cutting it a
Nick.
little close.
Nick of time.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Neverly, do you have a comment?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a comment, Neverly?
Yes. Glenn from the chat asked if Andy Siebert, who saw 2 cars going in, a RAV and a white Jeep, that had a peeling paint on the hood, was able to see if the RAV or the green car, not the RAV, but the green car had plates on.
Yeah, that's a good question too.
Yeah. I didn't see
I don't
anything
know.
in the report. Yeah,
Yes,
me neither.
nor did I.
Yeah, sorry, Glenn.
No, I don't know about those plates. Well, look, guys, we're approaching, I think, 2.5 hours. Do we have any final questions? Any final comments? The discussion has been awesome. Do we have any final comments? Big Jeff.
Well, I just would like to take the time, Dr. Silkman, to congratulate you. We've gone now through all the way through MAM 1, all the way through MAM 2.
Thank you.
A lot of people don't realize, I think, how much work it is to put together these presentations, put together a story in your head, get the pictures that match the story, relay the story as clearly and articulately as you do. It's a great service to the community to give people the insight that you've been able to give and the rest of the panel has been able to chime in on. Personally, I'd like to congratulate you on the quality and the dedication of the effort that you put forward in doing this. And I think Stephen and Brendan, if they were here, would be able to do that too. So thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you, Big Jeff. And I just want to say a little plug. Neverly has been helping me put the presentations together. But the other thing is I'm very lucky, Big Jeff, to have a great team behind me. There's a lot of people that put in a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I know I can do the story, but you've got to have a good foundation. And I'm very fortunate here that I've got a great team. But yes, to follow that on, we've now finished MAM 2. I think what I'll do is a summary for next week. Probably take 1 or 2 weeks off, have a bit of a break, and then we'll hit with Brendan Dassey. And the timing is perfect, right? Because we finished here with MAM 2, and Kathleen Zellner is going to get a response, hopefully. So we've gone through all the forensic evidence. We've now got the phone calls from Millbilly. So they're very, very interesting. We can now start to put together a story, a cohesive story. And timing-wise, I think we're in good step. Jerome, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, thank you very much to all of you. You are all amazing, and all the community is amazing. Thank you to all of you. With all this love we have, and you send us, and we try to send you back.
Yes.
You help us a lot, and thank you very much for the boys. And we will never give up. And Dr. Skillman and all the crew, big and huge congrats, because you made an amazing job, a real amazing job. Big congrats.
Thank you
I
so
would
much,
like
Jerome.
to add to that too. You are a very patient, kind, and honorable man, and I really have appreciated all of your hard work in this and everything that we've all been through with this, and I just want to say thank you.
No, thank you at all. Thank you very much, guys. The work is half done. We'll only rest when the boys come home and hug their mamas. But I think for me, from my perspective, I like to do this from an educational point, so that people can get a basis and do their own research and uncover all sorts of stuff. And hopefully we can put it together as a cohesive story. And I think that's been a really good journey for me. And, I'm very proud of everyone here, and other people as well, other YouTubers who work very, very hard. But yes, we'll do this again. I promise you, we'll do this for Brendan, and we're going to get all angry all over again. So, yeah, I thank you very much.
Well, if they will listen for the Powder Puff, the next one on Tuesday, we are going to open the doors to begin to look into the case of Brendan Dassey.
Wow.
So very important.
Yes. All right, guys. Do we have any final comments so we can close the podcast for this evening? Neverly, did you have a comment?
Yes. I wanted to say thank God you're retired from your molecular biology so you can do this full time, because I have a feeling you put in like straight 40 hours a week, if not more.
Well, put it this way, my family
Correct
want
me
to
if
kill
I'm
me.
wrong.
My family, well, I eat and breathe this, just like a lot of other people on this, and thank God I'm not addicted. Right? Thank God.
And you can walk away at any time.
And I can walk away anytime.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. thank you, Neverly, and thank you for all your help too. That's been awesome.
Oh my pleasure.
Bibi, do you have a final comment?
Yeah, just a couple of things real quick. Jerome and Dr. Silkman will have to sit down and discuss JFK because
okay.
Jerome has probably read some of Dr. Silkman's written reports about the JFK case from when he was in it for all those years.
Absolutely.
He's written substantial reports about it. And other than that, everybody come on over to Discord and join us, and many of us will be continuing the conversation over there. You're more than welcome.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, look, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank our esteemed panel and our special guests for coming on the show. And you can see the passion in people's voices, and that's awesome because we're here because there were three injustices done. Stephen, Brendan, and also to Teresa, too. Right? There's a vicious killer or killers still out there, right? And that's a scary thing. So
Right.
I like to thank the audience for their participation over MAM 1 and MAM 2. We got many favorable reviews. We got a couple of kicks in the bums, but we've learned our lessons on certain things, and we're not perfect, but we look at feedback and we see how we can improve. And guys, I'd like to wish everyone a good evening, and we'll catch up hopefully next week. Thank you very much, guys.
This has been a Foul Play production.